Okay, so let's talk top 5 tips for choosing your wedding venue. But before I begin, I just want to recap on my last video. If you haven't watched it, I've put it in the comment section below. But just to recap what we went through, you should now have a budget in mind, a guest list, so an amount of guests or estimated amount of guests. You should know roughly where you want to get married, and also you should have an idea of the date you want to get married. So let's get started, shall we? Top tip number 1 is the style of venue. Now, you might be looking at something quite traditional, or a hotel that's quite modern, or a rustic barn conversion. Have a think about that, because that will really narrow your choices down and it will make your decision a lot easier. Just a couple of things to bear in mind. Your family and friends are going to be there on the day and they know you better than anybody. So it really should reflect your personalities combined. So that's one tip. And the second tip is also bearing in mind the guests that will attend. Now, if they're quite reserved and quite conservative, having a party style venue isn't really going to blend with the type of guests that you're going to have attending. If you've got a real vast mixed amount of guests, then that makes the decision a lot easier. But just have a think about the style of venue, the guests that will be attending, and also both of your personalities, and you can't go wrong. Okay, so top tip number 2, probably the most important, is do your research and then do more research. So at this point, you'll probably go to the internet and have a look to see what venues are in the area that you'd like to get married. Now, do consider you may wish to have a ceremony in a church or in a separate building to where your dinner reception will be. So you may end up doing 2 sets of research, which is fine, but do as much research as you possibly can and get the information back from the venue holders and get as much information as possible. This will make your decision to choose your venue a lot easier. Also, just a tip when you do ask for information from the venue is also ask them if they do any offers that are out of season, because it may be that you found the perfect venue and you've fallen in love with it, but it's just a little bit out of your budget. Now, generally, wedding seasons, I know here in Cyprus, they start from kind of end of March, beginning of April to the end of October. So other venue holders may offer the same, where they offer discounts out of season. So have a look into that as well. And also ask them at that point when you're contacting them, ask them the availability for their dates, so you know that it's available for the day that you'd like to get married. Okay, top tip number 3, this is the exciting bit, is your shortlist of all the venues you've researched. So at this point you would have picked out all your favourites. That's it, that's top tip number 3. Tip number 4, and this is where reality kicks in, is go and see the venues that you've shortlisted. If you can't go and see them, ask them to send you videos or previous weddings that have happened, obviously with the consent of the bride and groom. But it's now time to check that the venue is everything that you want it to be. So when you go on your visit, ask all the questions that you need to make yourself comfortable with having your wedding there. Obviously check where you're going to have your ceremony, check where you're going to have your dinner reception, check where you're going to have your cocktail reception. Just double check everything that they include as part of booking your wedding with them. And also what's really great is you get to meet the person that's going to be there for you on your day. So hopefully you can build a bit of rapport with them and they can understand both of you by meeting you in person. Okay, top tip number 5. Now please don't laugh, but I'm a bit of a foodie. So my top tip number 5 is the food. Make sure you taste their food and make sure it tastes really good, because there's nothing worse than having a beautiful venue and the food is not good. So when you go to your venue viewing or afterwards, book in for a food tasting at that venue. All venues will do it for you. They don't generally advertise it, but if you ask, they will arrange a day where you can go and taste and have a sample menu of the food.